Here at LHS, we have an inconsistent bathroom policy. Since the school reopened from COVID, the restrooms have been open and then closed and then open and then closed. 2 weeks ago, it was the women's restroom, and the week after that, it was all restrooms during class. The student body is confused and angry with little to no communication from the administration on the issue at hand. So I went out and got all sides of the story.
Bathrooms aren't a privilege. I think that that's not something that they can just like take away and only reduce to us having like 7 stalls, like how that was last year. I think that it's definitely an overreach, especially because oftentimes it's like bigger systemic issues, like people skipping class or people like doing drugs or vaping like in the bathrooms, which I don't think ever gets solved by closing the bathrooms. I think that just inevitably recreates itself in different manifestations.
Yeah, I just think it's unfair to punish so much of the student body when such a small percentage is the issue.
I definitely have had some issues getting to the bathrooms because they were closed. It just seems like, there's just so many in the school and they close like so many in between classes, and the ones they don't close are usually the gender neutral ones, which happen to be like in the middle of the school. And so it's weird, like when you're all the way down in like Miss Batalia's room, all the way on the end of the school, or in the orchestra room, you have to walk all the way to the middle of the school to get to them. It's just like really hard. It takes a lot of class time away, and it's like really annoying to go to the bathroom.
We only have so long for passing periods, and especially I have a lot of classes where it goes from like the language hallways to like the music hallway, and that's just like unrealistic to ask me to use that 5 minutes to get from one class to another and use a bathroom and find a bathroom that's not locked.
One time I was asked to go to the bathroom and the teacher was like, no, you can't go because they're closed. And it was like, it's kind of one of those situations.
I just have difficulties with students and their bladders all the time. I've had a few difficulties with students being able to get back to class in a timely manner because of the bathrooms being closed. Sometimes it's hard to differentiate between the students having difficulty getting to a bathroom versus the students taking the long route to get to the bathroom. I think the school has limited resources to managing all of the bathrooms and how they're being treated by students.
What we were trying to do is curb some of the behavior that could eventually create a issue where the restrooms would not be usable at all. And we've seen what that looks like from last year. And it's when students congregate in the restroom and they stay there for long periods of time, eventually we often find vandalism, and sometimes things are placed down into the toilets that will make them non-functional for a while. So what we were trying to do is try to limit the possibility of things progressing in that way. And that's part of the reason why we actually closed them, and we tried to make sure we closed them only for certain periods of time. Our goal was to make sure that we cleared them out of anywhere from like 10 to 15 minutes after the passing period to make sure that they were open during passing periods. And then after that time, close them up during the class periods and just ask if students were getting passes that they would walk a little bit further to certain restrooms. Now, this strategy was not something that we were planning to use for a long period of time. It was just to kind of get just in a way of getting those students who were consistently misusing the restroom to correct their behavior.
I'd say definitely the female bathrooms have been closed more because like I've noticed that like they haven't been able to go to the bathroom, like they've asked and they can't, and like if I were to ask, it wouldn't be a problem.
There's two like ways that I think they indirectly hurt women. I think it hurts women because I think women's restrooms oftentimes become like a refuge for women. I think that's why like women are often skipping class together in there because, that's a space where it's going to be like mostly people who you closely identify with and like have a sort of community with.
People need to use the restroom and it becomes a health concern. And also as someone who, it's a health concern for multiple reasons, but as someone who experiences being on your period at school, that's also just unrealistic and unfair to close all those bathrooms, especially if it's most often, at least this year, women's restrooms.
And we really weren't trying to target girls and women at all because we were just looking at who or what group of students were actually misusing the restroom?
For the most part, the bathrooms that are generally in the worst shape are the gender neutral ones, which also makes bathroom closures
That's, you know,
harder.
as I said, I prefer to use the gender neutral restrooms, just because of the mess in the men's restroom a lot of the time, and of the rowdiness that can happen in there. It's like, damn, I'm trying to take a piss and there's some guy like jumping on people behind me.
As a teacher with my classroom right next to a bathroom, you know, when I have planned period or if I sneak out to use the restroom in the, you know, during a class time, I'm always finding students hanging out in the bathrooms and doing things more than just going to the restroom, washing their hands, and getting back to class.
There's a part of me that feels like they should just leave it alone, because I definitely think that there has been more misuse of the bathroom in reaction to administration shutting down the bathrooms.
I feel like a lot of us feel out of touch and like disconnected from administration a lot. So I think there's less of a respect there, just because I think there's so little interaction between administration and the student body.
I did notice like an uptick when administration did close bathrooms, definitely in spite of administration. Vandals kept vandalizing, if not more.
One of the things that we always want to tell students is that if you trust us, we really do have your best interest in mind. We're not trying to take away any opportunities from you. What we really want to do is to make sure that we keep the restrooms functional at all times so we don't have to close them.
At the end of the day, restrooms aren't a privilege. They're a human right. And we as students need to do better by respecting the spaces. And administration needs to do better by communicating with students and understanding our point of view.